My girlfriend and I have been seeing each other for 6 years, living together for 4. This past year has been challenging for us. Essentially, I don't feel prioritized, happy, or otherwise, and sexually validated. I told her over a couple of days and about 4 hours of talking how I felt over the past, bringing up issues that still haven't been resolved for me. Slowly over the years, resentment in me has built, and I'm starting to look forward to going to work more than coming home. When we first moved in together 4 years ago, I noticed how infrequent our intimacy was, about once a month. I was not and am not expecting it every day, and I know it starts to go down over time, but I didn't think it would be this infrequent off the bat. I talked with her, and she had a previous partner that made it difficult for her, which was fair. She started seeing a therapist, and I dropped the subject while she dealt with it. I supported her, communicated with her, and put effort into giving her space. I read articles and worked on finding other sources to fill my cup, like working out, playing video games, or the usual. However, over time, things just became more infrequent. Over the past few years, I have brought it up several times, and she promised she would make an effort each time, which didn't happen. This past year, we've been intimate 4 times, twice in the past 7 months. The feeling of not being prioritized started being obvious with my birthday that was in March. She didn't do anything, not even a cake. She told me to buy something and she would deduct it from our bills. If not for my coworkers taking me to the pub, my 30th would have been a sad memory. This summer, she spent 4 weekends with me in total, of which were spent at home, or I took overtime so I wouldn't just be sitting around. She booked most of the weekends with family in her hometown or on a beach. The last family trip where I went to visit her family, she was horrible to me. Her family was rude to me, and of course, I didn't say anything back, but she would get mad at me after we left, saying I was the one who was rude because I didn't talk much. On the same trip, one of her cousins was there. This cousin, she had planned a trip with the year before to go to Las Vegas, but the cousin couldn't afford the trip, so she asked me to help pay for her room, and I agreed. When the cousin found out I was coming, she wasn't interested. So my girlfriend said I couldn't go and that it would be a girls' trip. The cousin still canceled, and then my girlfriend asked if I still wanted to go, which I said no to because I'm not a second choice, especially when we never travel anywhere together. So while visiting her family, with that in mind, my girlfriend pulled me outside after everyone had been drinking with the cousin, and the cousin confronted me, asking why I had a problem with her. I was the designated driver, but everyone else had drunk a bit. I said we'd talk about it later when we were sober. I dropped them both off at her cousin's and drove back to the hotel. The next day, I told her how much that upset me, and it took months to get her to see why it did. The rest of the trip, I stayed at the hotel or drove around in the rental car. Another weekend, she went out drinking with some friends until midnight, and Kat sat for the same friend for a week, during which she slept over there. The friend she Kat sat for is one of my best friends, but we aren't talking at the moment, which is just the relationship we have sometimes. The following weekend, which was my 30th birthday, where she didn't do anything for me, we went to the cat-sitting friend's and his wife's place, and anytime I received any attention, he would do something to get that attention back, like interrupt, talk over me, play his guitar, or his loud speakers. He wouldn't let me even choose a song. Not trying to be rude, but man, it's my birthday. When she went out with them and Kat sat, it made me feel like how I felt about that situation didn't matter to her, like she didn't have my back, even though she agreed he was a jerk. It also made me feel terrible that she spent one of the few weekend nights going out with them after he'd been so rude to me. We talked for a while a day ago, and I told her how I felt about all these things and that I wasn't happy and needed change. During the conversation, she told me she checked out of the relationship after visiting her family last, with the cousin, which was around July, and that even though she knows I could always be there for her and put her first no matter what, she couldn't do the same for me above herself. I told her that outside of us, it was a super unhealthy thing to be okay with, and that maybe she should bring it up to her therapist. I don't think it's okay to never prioritize your partner over yourself. Basically, this summer I just wanted to go camping or travel somewhere. I also want to feel intimately validated. Yesterday, the day after the talk, she took herself out to dinner, then came home and avoided me with earphones in. Today was the same. I've pulled back from giving affection because I'm honestly very hurt. Tonight, she told me she's going to be staying at her uncle's place until Tuesday because her therapy appointment is on Monday, and she wants to discuss with her therapist how she feels. I'm unsure what to do or expect because I told her if things don't change, I need to leave. To add, I don't think she's cheated on me, and I trust her. She did take a trip to Seattle 5 years ago randomly and lied to me about meeting a guy down there on her WhatsApp. When I confronted her, she told me she didn't tell me about the new friend because my previous ex cheated on me. That being said, ever since then, I haven't had doubts. Her going out to these festivals and visiting family, I encourage because I'm not a crowd person and I enjoy my video games, which she hates, so we both win when that lines up. I do not want her to not travel or live her life. I just want to spend my life doing things with her, which it doesn't seem like she wants to. I want to go to the typical places like Ireland, Italy, France, etc. When we do spend time together, I'm usually happy, but this resentment I'm developing is starting to make that fade, and I want to start a family. I'm worried that would be a mistake now. Thanks for reading, and I appreciate any advice I can get. My close friends have said to bounce, but I don't want to give up 6 years without seeing every angle. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Brother, I hope you do not take it in a negative way, but you've been broken up with in the most cowardly way imaginable right now. She does not act like your girlfriend and goes out of her way to show you she doesn't see this relationship continuing. She just doesn't want to be the one to actually propose the breakup and look like a bad person to your mutual friends. Instead, she tries to manipulate you into this through mistreatment. I'm sorry to hear about you being treated like that. Any adult deserves to have a proper conversation and resolution to an issue like this. At this point, the breakup has been long overdue. Comment 2. It sounded like you have a housemate rather than a girlfriend, and you don't seem to be anything special to her. It's difficult to be ignored, especially by our partner. She's ignoring your existence and your needs. It definitely hurts to be neglected to this level. What has changed her? You have to think back to the beginning of the relationship. Was she always like this, and you somehow never noticed it, or did something happen along the years? Now, for the update. I got a text from my girlfriend saying she wanted to meet up to talk. This was a week after she moved to her uncle's place, so I was like, okay, maybe we can actually sort this out. We arranged to meet at this diner we used to go to for late-night pancakes. Honestly, I was a bit nervous, but also hopeful that we could get back on track. I got there early, like the punctual guy I am, and sat in a booth, looking at the menu. It was kind of weird to be there without her, but it was comforting, you know? She walked in, and right away, I noticed she looked a bit different, like she'd been crying but was trying to hide it. I know her pretty well, so I could tell. She sat down and immediately started talking about how she needed space to figure things out. I mean, we all need space sometimes, but this was kind of a big deal for us. I mentioned how I felt sidelined, especially lately. I mean, it really hurt seeing her prioritize her family over us. I know family is important, but come on. She listened, but didn't really respond. Just sat there playing with her coffee cup like it was the most interesting thing in the world. I brought up how her cousin had been rude to me during the family trip, and she brushed it off as just family dynamics. Like, really? Family dynamics? I told her that I felt disrespected, and she said she didn't want to confront anyone. I mean, I get that to an extent, but it was just one little conversation. After some back and forth, she said she had been thinking about how we might need a break. I asked her if that meant she wanted to see other people, and she didn't deny it. So yeah, that was a fun conversation. We ended the diner meeting with a vague plan to reconnect in a few weeks. Yeah, because that works so well, right? A couple of days later, I was cleaning out our shared closet because, life goes on, and I found this letter addressed to her from a therapist. It mentioned sessions discussing new relationships and feeling unfulfilled. Yeah, I was not okay with that. I confronted her about it over text, and she said it was just exploration about her feelings. I mean, sure, but seriously? I decided to go out with some friends to distract myself because I really needed it, and we ended up at a bar downtown. You know, just the usual. I ran into her uncle at the bar, who seemed surprised to see me. I mean, it's a small world, right? He casually mentioned that she was doing better and was making plans for a trip with her family. I felt uneasy hearing that, so I asked him if she was okay, and he just nodded without saying much. So helpful. I texted her later, asking if she was planning a trip, and she said it was just a short getaway. Yeah, right. A week later, she called me while I was at home, saying she wanted to talk again. She mentioned she wanted to come over and discuss some important changes. Important changes? Like what? I made dinner, trying to make it feel normal, but the tension was so obvious. During dinner, she told me she had been thinking about moving back in with her family. I tried to argue that we could work things out, but she seemed distant. Then she told me she had started seeing someone else casually. I felt the room spin a bit and asked her how long it had been going on. She admitted it started while she was at her uncle's and that it was mostly for fun. I stood up, pushed my chair back, and walked away from the table. I mean, what else was there to say? I came back, and she was crying, saying it wasn't meant to hurt me. That's a classic line, isn't it? I told her to leave, needing space. And she packed a few things and left quietly. The quiet ones are always the scariest. I texted my friends later, telling them what happened, and they were supportive but angry, which was nice. The next day, I found a receipt for a hotel stay under her name while cleaning. Yeah, she had been spending nights there instead of at her uncle's. I decided to go to her uncle's place to confront her, but she wasn't there when I arrived. Her uncle was surprised to see me and said she had gone out for lunch. I left feeling defeated and confused about what to do next. A few days later, I got a message from her saying she was moving forward with her new relationship. I replied, saying I needed time to process everything and would not reach out for a while. The last message I received from her was a goodbye, saying she hoped I would find happiness too. Edit. I want to clarify a few things. We don't have kids, which made her decision easier. We've only been on a handful of trips together, and I always enjoyed them. The family dynamics comment was frustrating. I wanted her to stand up for me, not compromise. I never met the new guy. Am I the idiot for confronting my boyfriend about his secret Bumble profile and making him leave? To start, my boyfriend and I have been dating for 6 months. We met through mutual friends who had been telling both of us how great we would be together. We decided to finally give it a go, and we have been pretty inseparable since. We just recently moved in together, and from what he has made me believe, he is absolutely head over heels for me. Or so I thought. He works about an hour away, doing pipeline work, and stays in a hotel the company provides for them from Monday until Friday afternoon, then will come back. He started this job about 2 months ago. This weekend, he was home and was trying to find a photo to show me when I briefly saw what looked like a screenshot from Bumble. I said nothing as I wasn't 100% sure, which I know I should have just said something in the moment, but I didn't. So I know this is not a cool thing to do, but after he fell asleep, I grabbed his phone to start the investigation. I've never had a reason to go through his phone. He has always been so reassuring and loving and seemed so sure that he was all in on me, even with what I found going on. I headed to his camera roll, and lo and behold, a screenshot from Bumble. So I furthered my investigation and searched for Bumble on his phone. I had to re-download it, but his profile was still there, and his most recent messages were from August 22nd. It didn't seem like he used it religiously and very often, but that's not the point. The thing that shocked me the most was that every single woman he was talking to was a transgender female. This shocked me because though I highly disagreed with his beliefs on this, he always made it clear he did not agree with the queer community. I found messages of him literally attempting meetups and sending his number out, telling them what city he is in. Now, I'm not sure if he fully acted on this and actually met up with them, but at this point, I'm not sure if that even matters. I decided to put his phone down and go to bed. I couldn't stomach waking him up. I guess I just chickened out. He woke up early this morning to drive back to his hotel, and when he went to say goodbye, he could tell I was being distant and asked what was wrong. All I said was, "We just need to talk later about your Bumble account," and he went silent. So I said goodbye and walked back upstairs, and he left for work for the week. I am just at a loss. I wish I could properly put into words how out of nowhere and shocking this is, because he acted like everything was perfect. We talked about our future just last night. He acted like the picture-perfect boyfriend, and this has just caught me completely off guard. I was fully ready to live the rest of my life with this man. I guess I'm stuck in a place of, do I 1, hear him out and listen to what he has to say about the whole thing and possibly try to work things out, or 2, say forget it, pack all his things up, and tell him to get it off my porch? Can a relationship survive after this? Anyway, he's still at work. We haven't talked yet. I guess I will update when the conversation is had. I'm looking for real helpful advice on the matter, so before everyone tells me to leave him, I know, but I'm looking for some kind of hope, I guess. I don't know. To add, my boyfriend is 31, not 21. Typo, laugh out loud. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, Yush Icy Lie 9986. Please be careful. He expresses intense hatred for people who are living their lives as who they truly are, while he hides and denies his own true self. You can be sure he is terrified that you now know his secret, but you can't be sure how far he might go to keep you from telling anyone he might know. This can become a dangerous situation so quickly. Please consider not being home when he gets back. You can speak by phone. Comment 2. Lots of good advice here. 1. He is cheating. 2. He has repressed intimacy desires and is so repressed that he projects hatred for it. This person has a lot of issues he needs to work out, and I'm sorry to say there is no room for you in any of it. You aren't married and don't have children. Bail before he gets back later this week. The comment regarding violence is very true. Take care of yourself and find someone who will truly love you. Now, for the update. I'm still processing everything. It's been 2 days since that mess with the Bumble profile, and my mind's just racing. I honestly thought I knew the guy I was dating, but now I'm just lost. I mean, how did I end up in this situation? My boyfriend came home from work last night acting all weird, and let me tell you, it was so obvious he was off. But did he have the guts to bring up what was on his phone? Nope. Not a word. The silence was so loud, and I was just sitting there waiting for him to say something. But I wasn't about to play that game. I decided right then and there that I wasn't going to wait for him to come clean. I had to confront him, and I had to do it now. I didn't want to drag this out for days. So we sat in the living room, and I just blurted it out. Are you still using Bumble? He got all quiet for a moment, and then finally admitted that he had made a profile during some rough patch before we started dating. Oh, how convenient. But he then said he hadn't used it since we got serious. Yeah, right. I wasn't buying that for a second. I brought up all the messages he was sending to those transgender women, and that's when he got all defensive. He said he was just being curious and didn't think it would hurt anything. Really? That's your excuse? I was so mad at that point. I told him that his actions were way more important than me snooping on his phone. He didn't care. This guy had the nerve to act like I was the bad guy here. He just kept saying how I was wrong for looking through his stuff. Then he just up and left the apartment, storming out like a child. I was just sitting there, completely stunned. Later that night, I got a text from him saying he was staying at his brother's place. No explanation, no apology, just that. I was a mess. I went to work the next day, but I couldn't focus on anything. My mind just kept replaying the argument over and over again. I felt like I was going insane. After work, I decided to visit my parents for dinner. I thought maybe being around them would help me clear my head. But of course, my mom had to bring up plans for the upcoming family holiday gathering. Just what I needed to hear right now. Then, the conversation shifted to my brother and his wife, who were planning this big reveal for their baby's gender. My mom asked if I was bringing my boyfriend to the gathering, and I hesitated. I didn't know what to say, so I eventually just said I wasn't sure. My dad picked up on my hesitation and asked why. That made me really uncomfortable, so I just mentioned the tension between us. I didn't want to go into details at that moment, so that was all I said. The next day, my boyfriend called and asked to meet up. I was nervous, but agreed. We met at a local diner, and he looked visibly shaken. It made me anxious to see him like that. He sat down and said he had something important to share and asked me to hear him out. I didn't know what to expect, but what he said really shocked me. He told me he had been feeling confused about his identity and has been exploring it. He straight up said he didn't want to break up, but he just needed time to figure things out. Then he dropped another surprise on me. He had been talking to someone online who identifies as genderqueer. My head was spinning at that point, and I asked him how long this had been going on, and he admitted it started before we met. He kept saying it wasn't about cheating, but about understanding himself. I was just sitting there, trying to wrap my head around everything. It got even more serious when he said he wanted to attend a support group. But then he said he was considering transitioning. Like, he really wants to go through with it? He asked if I would still be with him as he explored this new part of himself. And then he suggested we take a break to let him figure things out. What? We just got through talking about his secret life, and now he wants a break? He wants to keep me hanging on while he does whatever he wants? I didn't know how to respond. He was asking me to totally accept his new path without any hesitation. So we parted ways after that, and here I am now, trying to figure out what to do. Edit. I appreciate all the responses and support. A lot of people were curious about my boyfriend's past relationships, and while he hasn't dated anyone before me, he did have a close friend who recently transitioned. They lost contact after he started dating me, which he claims didn't relate to his feelings. Am I the idiot for leaving my deadbeat husband and signing a lease without telling him? When we met, he was in college getting his history degree and playing college baseball, saying he wanted to be a history teacher and a coach. Great. Then I got pregnant. After my mom sadly died, we moved to his hometown to live on his father's property in the same RV he lived in while he was going to college. Okay, fine. We don't have the baby yet. We'll get an apartment soon. That didn't happen. The baby is here. We're still living in the RV. It's getting smaller and smaller because of how much stuff we need and have, and how little space there is in an RV. My husband won't get a job. Sometimes he cuts grass with his dad and makes extra money. His dad gives him still $800 a month for us to buy groceries and gas. That's what he gave him when he was in college by himself. With me and the baby, he still gives us that same amount. My husband finally started offering baseball lessons. He makes about $700 a month now. His dad still gives him money. My Medicaid is about to expire. I need health insurance. He won't get a full-time job with benefits because he doesn't want to. He dropped out of college and never finished his degree. He started reading those Rich Dad, Poor Dad books and said he never wants to work for his money, that he wants to create passive income. Great. How? We're in a negative balance of money every month and have to put things on credit cards. His credit card is maxed out. My dad is selling the house I lived in with him and my mom. I had to get all of my things from an 1,800 square foot house and put them in this trailer. Furniture is in storage. There is no room. I said I wanted to get an apartment. He said no, he's not sharing walls with someone. I'm finally having to get a full-time job so I can get a healthcare plan because my husband won't. His dad's house has a room in it that was my husband's, but it's full of his stuff. He won't clean it. There's no room in there. My grandparents are getting involved now, saying it's unacceptable. I agree. I was promised so much more when I married him. His dad has some land and said he was going to build us a house on it. That never happened. It probably never will. My baby's room is the bunk bed room and storage room in the trailer. It's stacked full of things that don't fit anywhere else. Her pack and play barely fits in there. There's hardly any floor space because, hello, it's a trailer, and she gets into all kinds of stuff because you can't baby-proof a trailer when there's no room to put things. My husband isn't doing anything about this. He just gets mad at me for not cleaning. What do I do? To sum up, my husband won't get a full-time job with benefits, and because of it, we're in credit card debt and living in a travel trailer with our 10-month-old baby. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Based on your post history, you need to get out of that trailer yesterday. What you've been posting is concerning to say the least, and the situation you're in now is going to make it worse. Get what you need for you and your baby and get yourself to your grandparents' house as soon as possible. Your baby needs you and her to be with other safe adults right now. Forget your husband. He's a grown adult with other grown adults who can monitor him. You need to protect your baby and by extension yourself. This is not a drill. Go, do it, please. Comment 2. Your husband dropped out of college and mows lawns for pocket change. It is unlikely he will be able to get a job with insurance benefits for all three of you, even if he wanted to, which apparently he doesn't. My Medicaid is about to expire. I don't understand why that would be, but healthcare is a disorganized disaster with rules varying widely by state. Talk with a social worker about your options on that front. To be blunt, you married an immature, irresponsible individual, so it is difficult to foresee a good path forward. Now for the update. I'm back with an update. I don't know why I keep coming back, but here I am. I don't have a lot of good news to share, and it's honestly just getting more and more difficult to share this stuff. So, a few months have passed since my last post, and things have only gotten messier. My husband finally agreed to look for work after I showed him our growing credit card bills. Like, when did our bills double? What the heck? He found a part-time job at a local sports store, but it only pays enough to cover groceries. Our baby's room is still a storage unit. I don't know how much longer I can live like this. I started applying for jobs myself to get health insurance, and I landed an interview at a nearby daycare. But guess what? The night before my interview, my husband was supposed to watch the baby, but he went out with friends instead. I had to cancel the interview last minute, which frustrated my grandparents who were helping with childcare. They had to clear their schedules to babysit my child, and then I had to cancel. So embarrassing. I confronted him about his choice, and he dismissed my concerns, saying I was overreacting. The following week, my grandparents invited us over for dinner, hoping to mediate. I think they could see how much of a disaster we are, and they wanted to help. My husband showed up late, claiming he lost track of time playing video games. No surprise there. During dinner, my grandmother brought up the lack of a stable income, which set him off. He argued with her, calling her out for meddling in our lives. Like, chill, dude. I tried to calm the situation down, but it only escalated, and my grandmother left in tears. I felt so bad for her. After dinner, I confronted him about his behavior, and he accused me of being on their side, as if... I spent the next few days looking for job leads while he continued his part-time work. Not like he's doing anything special with that job anyways. I finally got a call back for a position at the daycare, and they wanted to meet the following week. Excited, I told my husband, but he brushed it off, saying it wouldn't change anything. I don't know what he wants me to do. Just sit at home and look after the baby until I'm 60? I can't. Tension peaked when my husband's dad offered us a loan for an apartment, but my husband refused it. Like, what? I took matters into my own hands and called his dad, explaining our situation. At this point, I was out of options, and I didn't care what he thought. His dad was surprised to hear I reached out and was willing to help, but needed my husband's agreement. I set a family meeting with both my husband and his dad to discuss our living situation. My husband was furious when he found out I contacted his dad and accused me of betrayal. The meeting ended with my husband storming out, leaving us in limbo. I accepted the daycare job offer the next day after a successful interview. Thank God. My husband continued to ignore my progress, focusing on his baseball lessons instead. I mean, he makes like $10 an hour with those lessons. That's not going to help us at all. With my new job, I was able to secure health insurance for myself and the baby. I started saving up for an apartment, planning my escape route. One evening, my in-laws invited us to a family gathering for a holiday celebration. I decided to show up alone with the baby, leaving my husband at home. I don't even remember the last time he went to a family gathering. My in-laws were shocked to see me without him and started asking questions. I explained our ongoing issues, and they listened, supportive, and concerned. My husband arrived later, and I could see the tension in the room immediately. He tried to brush off my earlier comments, but it only made things worse. A family member suggested we split the cost of a rental property. My husband exploded. He accused me of plotting against him in front of everyone, leaving me embarrassed. I calmly stated I was only trying to find a solution while the family looked uncomfortable. After that incident, I started looking at apartments without telling him. I found a small place that was affordable and had a solid plan to move in. On the day I signed the lease, I sent my husband a text saying I was leaving. He called me, furious and demanding to know why I would do this without him. I moved in, feeling a sense of control and planning my next steps. Edit: the lease is in my name only, and I plan to file for divorce soon. His name is not on the apartment. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.